My grandfather used to say, "Success is like a glacier, what the world sees as small compared to the foundation beneath." I never truly understood his words until I became that glacier myself. I'm Emma Thompson, and this is the story of how I went from being the embarrassment of my sister's glamorous world to watching her carefully polished image fracture in one unforgettable night. From a walk-up apartment above my family's Italian bakery in New York's Little Italy, I learned what sweat equity meant before I even hit double digits. By age 10, I was prepping pastry boxes and memorizing regulars' names. By 14, I was tracking inventory and catching accounting errors my uncle missed. I'd sneak into the back office after hours, poring over ledgers under a dim lamp, dreaming of a future where numbers told stories of triumph. "Números," my mother called out, waving a sticky notepad. I'd hop over, eager to dive in. "We're spending too much on fig jam," I'd note. "But if we bulk order with the cafe across the street," he'd chuckle, tapping my forehead. "Business brain on a child's shoulders," he'd say. "Ooh, made something big, mate." While other kids played soccer, I ran margins and read about scalable operations. My parents worked sunrise to midnight to fund my scholarship at Columbia. I owed them more than just good grades. At 24, I built a data-driven microloan platform that gained traction in immigrant communities. It was my secret rebellion against a world that underestimated me, coded late at night while my sister partied at exclusive clubs. By 29, it became a multi-billion-dollar venture, Bright Future Capital. Still, I kept quiet, preferring the shadows. I relished the anonymity, knowing every dismissive glance from my sister was a brick in my silent empire. That's when I met Ethan. It was at a tiny used bookstore off Bleecker Street. I was in yoga pants and an old college tee, skimming finance articles on my tablet, when he clumsily knocked over a stack of books. "Sorry," he said, reaching to help. "No worries," I replied, laughing. "I'm Emma. Let me buy you a cappuccino for the mess." That cappuccino led to lunch and, eventually, everything else. Ethan wasn't chasing IPOs. He was a community center director, grounded, genuine, and deeply committed to social equity. He cared about people, but even his warmth couldn't shield me from the sting of my sister's constant belittling, which he witnessed but never challenged. When Ethan proposed 8 months later, I said yes without hesitation. My family was thrilled, except for my sister Isabella. Isabella and I had always been different. She took a more traditional path: business school, corporate ladder, sharp suits and sharp elbows. As the marketing director of Harrington and Pierce, one of New York's top investment firms, she thrived on prestige, and she made it clear that while she loved me as a sister, she didn't quite respect me as an equal. She'd flaunt her designer handbags at family gatherings, each one a subtle jab at my simpler life. "So," she said during a family dinner at her parents' house on Upper West Side, swirling her wine like a judge at a tasting, "you're still running the bakery and your little app thing." I could have told her that little app had just signed a multi-year contract with one of the largest private equity groups in the Northeast, but I didn't. Or perhaps I wanted her to dig her own grave deeper, each slight fueling my resolve. "I'm still involved in both." "Yeah," I said, sipping my espresso. "Well, someone has to keep the pastries flowing," she said with a smirk. "I mean, not everyone can land a C-slip track position." Mom jumped in with her usual diplomatic tone. "Isabella just closed a huge campaign for Harrington and Pierce. The CEO personally thanked her." What they didn't know was that Harrington and Pierce had been licensing analytical tools for my company for over a year and were currently in talks to expand. I'd overheard Isabella claim credit for those tools in a boardroom, a lie that made my blood boil but sharpened my focus. "That's wonderful," I said genuinely. Isabella beamed, assuming victory. Months passed in that familiar pattern, Isabella subtly putting me down at every family event, and Ethan gently encouraging me to brush it off. His silence during her jabs cut deeper than her words, a betrayal cloaked in kindness. Then came the announcement. Isabella was hosting a gala to celebrate her promotion to senior director. At the planning dinner, she turned to me with a smile like a blade. "Emma, since you've got experience with events and food service, would you mind helping manage the catering crew?" Her tone dripped with condescension, as if I were a servant invited to her court. Mom clapped. "What a perfect idea. Emma runs a business, she knows logistics." I met Isabella's smug gaze and smiled. "Of course I'd be happy to. Later that evening, Ethan tried to pull me aside, guilt clouding his expression. "You don't have to go through with this," he whispered. "We can tell them you're sick or had a work emergency." But my mind was already spinning. After all, it's a big night for Isabella. Everything should be flawless. What no one at that table knew was that just that afternoon I'd received an intriguing email. The CEO of Harrington and Pierce, yes, Isabella's firm, William Harrington himself, wanted to meet the elusive founder of Bright Future Capital, me. Apparently, he would be attending tonight's celebration. He'd praised my platform's revolutionary algorithms, unaware I was the sister Isabella mocked relentless. Suddenly, the pieces fell into place, and for the first time since my sister's relentless jabs began, I smiled. Not politely, not to keep the peace, but a smile born of anticipation. Isabella had no idea that her carefully curated celebration was about to turn into something much grander than a promotion party. Sometimes the best revenge isn't payback, it's revelation. And tonight promised a spectacular one. The Sterling residence had been transformed into something between a luxury showroom and a gala. Mom called it classy and elevated. I thought it looked like Pinterest met Wall Street. Crystal stemware lined every table. Ice sculptures glistened in the New York chill. A harpist played near the garden fountain. I couldn't help thinking the event budget might outstrip Isabella's bonus. "Emma," she called, striding in with the confidence of a queen. Her silk gown shimmered under the lights. "The catering staff is waiting. Try to keep them in line, and please." Her eyes flicked to my modest black dress. "Stay behind the scenes." Her words were a calculated slap, meant to remind me of my place in her glittering world. I nodded. "Of course, Isabella. I'll make sure everything runs smoothly." Ethan squeezed my arm. "We can leave now," I smiled. "No need. Everything is going exactly as planned." In the kitchen, the catering team looked overwhelmed. Isabella had apparently demanded last-minute changes again. "Ms. Thompson?" a young server asked nervously. "Your sister wants the champagne served exactly at 9:30 p.m. for her speech, but also wants ongoing tray service, and we're short 2 servers." I gave her a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, I've handled more chaotic nights in a bakery with no air conditioning. Let me help." I moved with precision, every step a silent rehearsal for the moment I'd step out of the shadows. If you've ever been underestimated by someone who should have supported you, stick around, because what happened next didn't just change the room. It changed the game. For the next hour, I worked side by side with the catering crew, coordinating timing, plating hors d'oeuvres, and ensuring champagne kept flowing. All the while, I kept an eye on the guest list, noting each new arrival. Isabella floated from circle to circle, sipping too much Prosecco and laughing just a little too loudly at her co-workers' jokes. "Did you see Emma?" I heard her giggle to a group of sharply dressed executives. "My sister. She's helping the catering team. Honestly, it's where she feels most at home." "Poor thing." A round of polite chuckles followed. "Some people just aren't made for this world," she added with a theatrical shrug. Her words stung, but I channeled the pain into focus, each jab a reminder of the empire I'd built in silence. Our mother, Clara, chimed in sweetly. "We've always tried to include her, of course. It's what family does. But with her background, well, we can only do so much." I passed another tray of canapes, quietly observing as executives from Harrington and Pierce trickled in. At 9:10 p.m. my phone buzzed. A text from my CFO. "All signed, everything's in place, we're greenlit." I smiled to myself. Right on cue, Isabella, now flushed with drink and praise, addressed another group. When Ethan first introduced me to his girlfriend, my sister, I thought he was joking. A baker/app tinkerer. But our mother says charity begins at home. Her laughter was a blade, slicing through years of my quiet endurance. "Speaking of charity," Clara added, "we're thinking of helping her with a $50,000 0 cents down payment on a modest condo. Not too close to Tribeca, of course, but something manageable." Their pity was a performance, and I was done being their prop. Just then, a stir swept across the room. William Harrington had arrived. Isabella nearly tripped over her heels in her rush to greet him. "Mr. Harrington, we're so honored to have you." Dressed in a bespoke navy suit, he scanned the room. Then his gaze landed on me, his brow furrowed briefly, recognition flickering. Isabella laughed nervously. "Oh, don't mind her. That's my sister Emma, just helping with the service. Let me show you the marketing deck I've prepared. Her desperation to keep me invisible was palpable, but the tide was turning. Actually, William interrupted, still staring at me. Isn't that? I passed my tray to a waiter and stepped forward. Lo, please, Isabella hissed. Mr. Harrington doesn't need a drink, just go back to the kitchen where you— Hello, William, I said evenly. Thank you for coming tonight. His face lit up. Miss Thompson, I didn't expect to see you serving drinks at your own celebration. Well, yes, William Harrington continued smoothly. Given that Bright Future Capital has just acquired a controlling interest in Harrington and Pierce, I assume this event was organized to announce the merger. He turned to me, smile restrained but amused. Unless you wanted to keep that under wraps a bit longer. Phelan's fell across the entire estate. Even the string quartet stopped mid-note. You could hear the clink of ice in untouched glasses. Isabella's flute of Prosecco slipped from her fingers, shattering across the marble floor. There must be some mistake, she stammered. Emma, she's a baker. She runs that little shop in Little Italy. Her denial was frantic, a crumbling facade under the weight of truth. William chuckled softly. Miss Thompson is the founder and CEO of Bright Future Capital, which, as of today, owns 51% of my firm, and by extension, your department. He turned to me again, eyes gleaming. Those data stream optimizations you recommended? Absolutely brilliant. Our engineers couldn't stop raving. Across the room, Clara grabbed onto the edge of a chair, pale and speechless. This can't be. Emma doesn't— She couldn't be. Oh, but I am, I said quietly. But in the stunned silence, my words echoed. Bright Future Capital has been mine from the start, and as of 10 minutes ago, we officially own a majority stake in Harrington and Pierce. I turned to face Isabella, including Mark. Her face had gone pale, her mouth opening and closing with no sound. But all those times you dismissed me, I finished for her, treated me like I didn't belong, like I should be grateful just to stand near your world. Every slight, every smirk, every moment you made me feel small. I've carried them all, and tonight, they're your undoing. Ethan pushed through the stunned crowd. Emma, why didn't you tell me? Would it have changed anything? I asked, voice soft. Would you have stood up for me if you knew I was wealthy? Because you didn't when you thought I wasn't. He stepped back, speechless. William cleared. Well, since everyone's gathered, shall we make it official? Bright Future Capital's new leadership of Harrington and Pierce. Gladly, I replied. Then I turned to Isabella, smiling. I believe you had a speech prepared. Would you like to give it or shall I? Isabella trembled, then fled the room. Clara followed in stunned silence. I lifted a champagne glass from a passing tray and gently tapped it. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, stepping forward. The ripple from that moment would shake my family to its core, and we were just getting started. Dunn had drifted toward the back of the room, looking dazed. My mother, Clara, was nowhere in sight, likely having gone after Isabella. My father, Vincent Thompson, who'd always been the quietest at gatherings, stood by the cocktail bar, nursing an empty glass and staring into it thoughtfully. After the formal announcement, William Harrington pulled me aside. Well, he said, eyes twinkling, that was one of the more entertaining business reveals I've ever witnessed. Though I have to ask, why let them think you were just a baker for so long? I sipped my champagne, letting the question breathe. Because people reveal who they are when they think you're beneath them, and I wanted to see how far Isabella would go, how deep her arrogance ran. He nodded. Well, their loss is our gain. I look forward to working with you properly this time. As the party wound down, Isabella reappeared, makeup patched, composure forced, and fury barely restrained. She stormed straight toward me. You humiliated me, she hissed, in front of every major contact I built. No, Isabella, I said, my voice calm. You humiliated yourself. I simply didn't stop you. You built your throne on lies and disdain, and I just pulled the curtain back. I'll resign, she snapped. I won't work for you. That's your decision. But before you walk away, understand this. Every major firm in New York already knows what happened tonight. Your comments about people like me while insulting your own CEO? That won't go unnoticed. Her shoulders sagged slightly. What do you want from me? I want you to learn. Starting Wednesday, you'll be working with our community outreach team. We're launching a program to support local restaurants and small businesses with better financial tools. She blinked. Her too? Who? To my mother, I replied. She still runs the family bakery. By choice, not desperation. She'll be leading the initiative. Isabella's mouth opened, then closed. Then Clara appeared right behind her. Emma, surely we can talk this through privately, she said, her voice cracking. We're family, after all. I turned to face her fully. Family? For 4 years you made me sit with the catering staff, cropped me out of photos, and talked about me like I was a charity case. When exactly did I become family? You applauded Isabella's cruelty, thinking it made you superior. We didn't know, she murmured, that you had money. That's the point. You assumed I wasn't worth respect because you thought I was poor. That's when Vincent stepped forward, setting down his glass. Everyone turned to look. She's right, Clara. We've treated her terribly. My father, Vincent said, his voice low but firm as he turned to my mother. I sat by, he continued, looking at me now, and watched our values decay into pride, prejudice, and shallow appearances. Maybe it took this to wake us up. I saw a flicker of the man who taught me to count coins, the one who believed in me before anyone else. Finally, Ethan stepped forward. The room had emptied, leaving only the family and the wreckage of assumptions. Why didn't you tell me? He asked quietly. I wanted to, I replied, so many times, but every time you stayed silent while your family mocked me, I realized something. If you couldn't respect me as a baker, then you didn't deserve to know me as a CEO. I love you, he said, desperation thick in his voice. Love without respect isn't love that lasts, Ethan. Every time you let your family treat me like less than human, you revealed what our relationship was really worth. You chose their approval over my dignity, and that's a wound that doesn't heal. I can change now that I understand. I looked at him, unmoved. Now that you understand I'm rich, that's not growth, that's adaptation. I filed for divorce last month. You'll be hearing from my attorney. Emma, please. I turned to Isabella. I'll be meeting with Harrington and Pierce Board tomorrow, but you'll be reporting to my mother at the bakery on Wednesday. She doesn't tolerate lateness. Then I looked at Clara. The estate looks lovely tonight. You should enjoy it while you can. Her eyes narrowed. The bank approved my bid this evening. It's now the Thompson Foundation for Opportunity, our new nonprofit headquarters for training and uplifting New York service workers. Their stunned expressions were priceless, but I didn't linger. Outside, the warm breeze brushed past me as my phone buzzed. Coming to the bakery for late dinner. Your father made your 15. 15 minutes later, I was back where it all started, at my parents' bakery, eating cannolis and laughing about the evening's chaos. People like that, Mom said, shaking her head. They need hard lessons. Success without humility, Dad added, is like sugar without yeast. Looks sweet, never rises. As I helped close up, yes, the CEO of Bright Future Capital still wipes counters, I thought about the journey. The little girl who once counted coins now counts capital in trillions. But my true wealth, it's always been respect, integrity, and the courage to know my worth. If my story reminded you of your own journey, of being underestimated, dismissed, or told you weren't enough, I'd love to hear from you. Share your story in the comments. Let's build a space where quiet strength is celebrated. And if you believe that respect matters more than status, that success without humility means nothing, subscribe and stay connected. I built my empire brick by brick, but it started with knowing my worth. My advice? Never let anyone else define your value. Keep building even when no one's watching. Especially then, because that's when character, not just success, is truly forged.